ready to spray the last coat of 2K urethane primer. That will then be ready to wet sand and spray the base coat, clear coat later this week. But one of the things that I've got to finish up is putting the seam sealer in the drip rails. We've got the drip rail here that needs to have seam sealer down inside, and then we've also got an area back here in the Dutchman where we're going to need to put some seam sealer where the Dutchman mates up to the quarter panel, and then there's also some spots in the rear valance back here that also get factory seam sealer. Now, when I got this car and started working on it, someone had filled these seams down here by these corners with body filler, and so it looked like just one continuous piece. I guess some people might like that look. I have a feeling that it was just filled with body filler in an error. So I'm going to take it back to the way that it would have been from the factory. I've done some seam seal work here where the quarter panel and the tail pan weld together. Nothing fancy here. This is just regular old seam sealer that I brushed in there. So we have that all done. I used a little bit different type of seam sealer here. I used, well, you can see it there in the trunk. It's a Fusor 806 HD. It's a high definition seam sealer. So that one I could just tool by hand. Some of these other areas I want to use a self-leveling seam sealer, and for these spots on the valance, or sorry, the Dutchman and the drip rails, I'm going to use what they refer to as a self-leveling seam sealer. So it's a two-component. It is also from Fusor 122EZ. It's medium speed, so it's not going to set up immediately, but it's not going to take all day either. It'll take about 5 to 10 minutes. I suppose if you need some time to tool it, it makes sense to use something that's, you know, medium or slow to give you a little bit of time to work with it. Since this is a self-leveling seam sealer, I don't really see any reason why you would actually need to tool it. We're gonna use this special gun. It's basically has two plungers in it, and it's going to push out both parts of this seam sealer, and it'll go through this mixing tip, and this tip will actually take both parts of the seam sealer and mix it together. So when it actually comes out the end of the tip, we'll have one stream versus two streams that are actually going into the tip. So it's a pretty nice seam sealer. I like to use it. We're going to put it in. We're going to start it in here. You can see that I've got a little piece of tape here between the two drip rails. There's a gap there, so I don't want anything to run out. And then I've also built a little bit of a makeshift dam at the bottom here to keep the seam sealer from running out. I'll have to watch this very carefully. This is fairly vertical, maybe 45 degrees angle here. So I want to make sure that I don't put too much seam sealer in there so that it doesn't all just run out. I've got another seam sealer that I'm going to use on the rear valance that I may actually use in that channel depending on how quickly this flows. And then I've also got at the bottom of the drip rail here another dam just to keep the material from flowing out of the drip rail. So we're going to go ahead and start applying the seam sealer, and we'll see how it goes, and I'll try to add another video. So I got the seam sealer done last night. Put seam sealer in the drip rails, in the Dutchman seams that you see here, and then also in the rear tail pan and the valance. So this was the Fusor 122EZ. It's a self-leveling two-part seam sealer. Turned out pretty good. I've used drip check in these and other seam sealers over the years, but first time I've tried to use this self-leveling material. So that's basically what the Dutch looks like. This side over here, I went ahead and scuffed a little bit. You've got about 24 hours to get a top coat on this. I think anywhere from 30 minutes to 24 hours without having to scuff it. I did not have time to get primer on it in the 24-hour window, so I'm just going to go through here and scuff everything with 180, 220 grit, just to make sure that the primer will adhere to the seam sealer. I'm going to be really close to 24 hours, so I probably would make it, but again, just to be on the safe side. Again, this is the self-leveling stuff. It looks really nice. It doesn't look exactly like factory, but it'll be a much better seam when it's all said and done. So looking forward to seeing how it turns out, and then you can see it here in the drip channel as well. I was a little bit worried about how well it would stay in the channel, but it actually stayed in there pretty good. It sets up in about 5 to 10 minutes, and if you just plan accordingly, then then you don't have too many issues with it. So we'll go ahead and finish getting this all scuffed and get it ready for primer, and we're going to shoot the last coat of primer on this beast later tonight.